Joining us on the line is Ambassador David Friedman. He was the U.S. ambassador to Israel from March 2017 until January 2021 under Donald Trump. And he, of course, successfully guided unprecedented diplomatic achievements in the U.S.-Israel relationship, including the Abraham Accords and the United States Embassy being moved to Jerusalem. He has a brand new book out today titled One Jewish State, The Last Best Hope to Resolve the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. Ambassador Friedman, great to speak with you.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be with you as well.
So obviously, let's start with the news of the weekend. Horrifying news out of Israel as 6 bodies are found in a terror tunnel held by Hamas, 6 hostages for over 300 days in the back of the head, including an Israeli American. And the first response, apparently, of the rest of the world is to tell Israel to make more concessions to Hamas. That includes the current president of the United States, Joe Biden, who awakened from his torpor in Rehoboth Beach to explain that Benjamin Netanyahu was apparently not doing enough. What's your take on the situation?
I was horrified by that, and I'll tell you why. Israel's going through a massive trauma since October 7th, and that trauma was relived again a couple of days ago when these 6 hostages were found dead. And look, there are political divides in Israel, and everybody knows that. But for Biden to say on a day like yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever he said it, that Bibi Netanyahu is not doing enough to free the hostages, not only is it absolutely false, but it pours gasoline on a fire of America's most important ally. I mean, the people of Israel need some comfort. They need a hug. They don't need to be told that their democratically elected leader doesn't care about the hostages, which is an absolute lie. An absolute lie. And you know what the proof of it is, because you know this as well. In unfortunately in Israel and in America, these things, everything leaks constantly. I mean, any story out is out in about 5-10 minutes. So here's the story that no one ever wrote. What was the deal, right? What was the deal? How many hostages were being released and when? What was the price? How many murderers were being released? What was happening to Sinwar? What was happening to Mashal? What was happening to Gaza? Who was going to rule over it? Was Israel getting out, or permanently getting out temporarily? What was? The answer is no one knows, because there was no deal. And the idea of accusing Netanyahu at a time when he's fighting for his life, for the life of the country, is the worst political stunt, the most obnoxious political stunt I've ever seen anybody pull. And they should be ashamed of what they did.
Ambassador Friedman, for those Americans who look at the conflict in the Middle East and they say, why does this even matter to us? Why is this something that actually we should care about? Why isn't this just a faraway conflict in a distant land? I think what this speaks to, the reaction of the Biden administration, or say the UK government, which is cutting off weapons to Israel in the middle of a war, it speaks to a new kind of Western idea since the end of the Cold War, that the West does not deserve to defend itself, that when something terrible happens to the West, it probably is because the West has been too harsh. It's because the West itself has brought it upon itself. It's all backlash. Why should what's going on in Israel matter to people who don't live in the region?
Well, in the first place, it's disrupted everybody's lives. I mean, look at how those who hate our country have mobilized upon this war to foment insurrection everywhere. I mean, you can't go to college in America anymore in the blue states. You just can't go. I mean, I have friends whose kids, they're paying lots of money for tuition. They can't go to class, because this war has mobilized a current within the United States that is Marxist, communist, anti-American, and wants to destroy us. And those that want to destroy Israel want to destroy America, and Israel is the tip of the spear. And as goes Israel, ultimately that's the Western world. I mean, that's the tip of the Western world. They're fighting the front closest to our enemies. And so there's a direct line between how Israel does and prosecutes this war and defends itself, and how the rest of the Western world. I mean, look, you see, London is unlivable. Paris is unlivable. Why? Because these countries have followed exactly what you pointed out, that was somehow we need to commit national suicide as a way of self-governance, and we can't do that. We're 10 years behind London, on this. We can't do it, and Israel can't do it, and I would add one thing, Ben, which is that the Bible still sells 2,000 copies an hour in America, 20 million copies a year. People care about the Bible. It's the last authentic, anchoring wisdom and values that we have left in our country, and we're losing that as well. But that's all we got left is the Bible, or the values, the Judeo-Christian values of that book. And that book lives in the land of Israel. If you want to authenticate the stories, the events, the archaeology, you go there and you get to recharge your batteries, and it matters. It matters to a lot of people, and it should matter because, again, that is the wellspring of the values that made America a great country.
We'll get to more on this topic in a moment. First, did you know there's nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent? That is correct. There's a massive stockpile of cash the lame duck administration is going to push hard to spend in their last few months to artificially inflate the economy. If Biden is able to push those funds out, we could see another inflation surge, just like during COVID. I'm sure you remember the terrible effects high prices have on most Americans. There is hope. A surge in prices can be beaten. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group is the ultimate inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by texting the word BEN to 989898. There's more good news. Due to enormous demand, Birch Gold is offering the 24-karat gold-plated Truth Bomb for one more month on qualifying purchases. But you need to text BEN to 989898 to claim your eligibility before September 30th. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to tank the dollar again. Protect your financial future with gold. Text BEN to 989898. Claim your eligibility. Make your purchase before September 30th. Again, don't wait for another spending spree to create inflation. Instead, text BEN to 989898. Claim your eligibility. Make your purchase before September 30th. So, Ambassador Friedman, your book, One Jewish State, The Last Best Hope to Resolve the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict, posits something that has become taboo, which is the claim that the best solution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is Israeli sovereignty, not only in what is now termed inside the Green Line Israel, but also in Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank. What's the case for that? Because the case that's always been made is that a two-state solution is the best. There has to be a self-governing Palestinian state in which Palestinians govern Palestinians and Israelis govern Israelis. The case that you make is the opposite. You essentially say that's never going to happen. So why exactly should Israel govern areas like, say, Nablus or Jenin that are entirely Palestinian, but are obviously honeycombed with terrorism as well?
So look, we start off with the point you made. The two-state solution, we now demonstrably know it won't work because we have attempted to establish that in Gaza about 17 years ago. And they were given lots of money. There's not a single Jew living there, not a single boot of any American soldier there. They were given billions of dollars. The territory is beautiful, western-facing Mediterranean. And they took all the money, all the billions of dollars. They elected Hamas, and they created one of the most vile terror states ever known to man. Okay, that's the two-state solution. That would be replicated as well in Judea and Samaria if there were a Palestinian state there, even in places like Area A, which is a component under Oslo of Judea and Samaria, which is entirely Arab. Those places have now become hotbeds of terrorism, as you say, in Jenin and Ramallah, and the Israeli Defense Forces have to go there to keep the peace. So making the case that a two-state solution has failed and will continue to fail is pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. You'd have to be blind not to know that. Now the question is, what do you do? So the question is there anybody that can rule over Judea and Samaria that has a track record of empowering an Arab minority? Well, you don't have to look far for that, right? It's the state of Israel. 20% of the state of Israel are Arab citizens. More than 20% of Haifa University, Beersheba University, Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University are Arabs. The Arabs have assimilated and penetrated into Israeli society in a very positive way. I have dear friends who are at the pinnacle of business and science in the state of Israel. You break your leg and you go to Hadassah Hospital, you're probably going to get an Arab orthopedic surgeon who'll do a very good job in treating you. So, Israel is the only country that can export into this very kind of dangerous, unstable area the kind of governance and values that will enable the locals, the Palestinians, to have a standard of living that rises up to that of Israeli Arabs. That's number one. Number two is for those who care about biblical Israel and those who care about places like Shiloh and Hebron and Bethlehem and the old city of Jerusalem. If Israel doesn't maintain sovereignty over those places, they're gone. I mean, the Palestinians, given the opportunity, as they have done, for example, with the grave of Joseph in Nablus, they will destroy any connection. This is their goal, to destroy any connection of the Jewish people, of the Christian faith to this holy land. I mean, this land, this is where Jesus walked. This is where the kings ruled, the prophets preached. These are not places that could be given away. I mean, I believe that is even the secular Israelis, even the far left in Israel, who kind of never wanted to get too close to the Bible, never get too close to their ancient history, wanted to recreate Israel in their own image. Even they are recognizing right now that this land is really the DNA of the Jewish people and essential to people who observe the Christian faith. And we can't give it away. And if we can't give it away, need to come up with a system to keep it under Israeli sovereignty. And of course, my final point is that there'll be no security in the region until Israel is able to rule over this land. Israel can rule over the land; they can keep the peace, and that's the best thing for Jordan. It's the best thing for the Saudis, the Emiratis. It's the best thing for the Palestinians who live in Judea and Samaria. So when people say to me, "Oh, you're a colonizer, you're an apartheidist," no, this is a plan. You can like it whether you're on the left or you're on the right, whether you're secular, whether you're religious. It's the best outcome for everyone. It's actually the unfinished business that Donald Trump and I and Jared and others were working on when we left office. I mean, this is the unfinished business, trying to find a solution that works for all. And if people keep an open mind, this is a far better solution to the two-state solution, which is a failure.
So, Ambassador Friedman, obviously the big objection to anything like this is, how does voting work? So the claim is, let's say Israel takes sovereignty, annexes the Judea and Samaria regions of what people call the West Bank. Let's say that they do that. Obviously, you have millions of Palestinians who are living there. They're not voting now. Obviously, they haven't voted in an election since like 2004. So Mahmoud Abbas is now in year 18 of a 4-year term. And obviously, voting is not taking place in the Gaza Strip. But the supposition is that now living in democratic Israel, they should be granted a vote in the Israeli parliament. If that were to happen, then almost immediately you would have a vying for control over the actual democratic auspices of the state of Israel. So how do you square that circle? How do you make it so that Israel can maintain all this control over this area without falling into the trap of either a radicalized Arab minority taking control of the entire state, or the quote-unquote apartheid state accusation that essentially there's a second-class citizenship being provided for Arab citizens?
So look, Israel, if it took over Judea and Samaria, it will inherit a large, somewhat radicalized at this point, Arab population, and it will work with its partners to try to de-radicalize that by creating opportunities for the Palestinians there. But Israel can't, swap, if you will, a security threat for a demographic threat. They can't. It just can't be done. I mean, Israel is a Jewish state, and that's why the book is called One Jewish State, because we're only asking for one Jewish state. There's 40 plus Muslim countries in the world, right, where you got to be Muslim. There's Christian countries, there's Hindu countries, there's Buddhist countries. We're just saying, kind of one Jewish state, which means that the national character of the state of Israel, the collective right of self-determination, which is part of the Israeli nation state law, has to be Jewish. Within that umbrella, you'll have governance. And I use the example, for example, of Puerto Rico in the United States. Puerto Rico is a wholly owned territory of the United States. Its people are citizens of the United States. They don't vote. Puerto Rico does not vote in a national election. Neither does Guam, neither does American Samoa or other places. No one accuses America of being an apartheid state. So we'll have to work on the governance. I mean, I think the Palestinians living in their communities should have civilian autonomy. They'll elect their mayors, they'll elect their governors. They'll possibly, if we're getting into serious discussions, we can talk about taxation and how they'll have representation in taxation. Possibly, we can go in different route and just say, look, There's 7 or 8 principles of Israel that you need 90% of the population to vote in favor of, and which is another way of maintaining the Jewish character of the state of Israel. There's ways to do it. To me, that's a detail. To let that detail get in the way of de-radicalizing the West Bank, of giving away the biblical heritage of the Jewish and the Christian people, and to creating another terror state that will simply do to Israel in spades and 10 times what Gaza did. It's a problem we're going to be able to fix. I have no doubt it's fixable if people take this seriously.
Well, the book is One Jewish State, The Last Best Hope to Resolve the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. The author is Ambassador David Friedman. Of course, he was ambassador to Israel under Donald Trump. David, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.